with another episode of the Officialize Experience. I'm your host, Kirk Cousins, coming off a game against the New England Patriots yesterday in Foxborough, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle Schonewil. Kyle, what were your initial thoughts coming out of the game from yesterday?
Well, one of the things I'm actually most curious about is actually all the travel. So, you fly from Minneapolis to Boston, and then you come home back to Minneapolis, and this week you're going to have to fly out to the other side of the country in Seattle. Does that travel eventually mess with routines? Does that change a lot for you?
I think the travel is unique. It certainly adds a dimension to the whole week. I also think that the sleep is the biggest issue because we get back to our place last night. It's probably 12:45, almost 1 a.m., and you're trying to get to sleep, and it's just hard to sleep after games to begin with. And then this week, we'll actually probably get back after the Seahawks game at like 6 or 7 a.m. and try to sleep through the night on the plane, which won't happen. And I think that's the biggest challenge because then the next couple days are affected from not getting a normal sleep routine. But that's the nature of playing away games. When you don't play them at noon or 1 o'clock, it's pretty hard to, get back home at a decent hour. So that's part of the deal. I'm glad we're not baseball or basketball players flying all over the country for 6 straight months. Football is a nice rhythm of just, once a week. But going coast to coast, back-to-back weeks on the road in primetime games certainly is not ideal or preferred, but we've had our fair share of primetime games this year. And ultimately, if you're a good football team and people want to see you, then you're going to be in primetime, and that's certainly a goal of ours. So you'll take the good with the bad.
So one other quick random question before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the game yesterday. I noticed you had gloves on the first drive. I've never seen you wear gloves, maybe ever, I think. Was that just weather-based?
It was weather-based. I felt the last time I was in weather like this actually was Seattle last year, and I didn't feel like I had a good grip on the ball in that game. And so I was aware of how the ball felt in warm-ups. I didn't like the way it felt when I went out and threw without gloves initially. So I put the gloves on in warm-ups, and it felt really, really good. And even though I hadn't had a lot of experience with it recently, I said, based on warm-ups, I'm gonna do it. And then I missed the first throw and felt like it wasn't worth it. Not to mention the weather was constantly changing. So the weather that it was at 2:30 when I went out to warm up, and the weather that it was at 3:30 when I went back out to warm up, and then the weather that it was around 5 o'clock in the first quarter really was very different. And so I felt like it dried out as the game went on, and I didn't need the gloves. But I think it's nice to know if there is a heavy rain game, that's probably something I'll pull out.
Looks like maybe it could be the same in Seattle this week.
Right.
Looked like Kurt Warner out there. Okay, so you guys lost 10-24 yesterday, the New England Patriots. Take us through just some of the struggles on offense maybe first. I felt like, well, here's my take on some of it. We had some nice runs going, which was good. However, 3 or 4 of them maybe were called back, like long runs were called back from holds, so that kills you as far as the extra passes. How did you feel about the run game and how that affected the play calling?
Run game was good. I think the holding calls hurt. I think when you have a 1st and 10 run to start a drive and then you end up with 1st and 20, it not only affects that drive, but it affects the play calls within the drive because then people are going to say, why don't you run the ball more? Well, when it's 1st and 20, I don't know that we have a lot of faith in running the ball 3 times and getting a first down. So holding calls hurt, certainly from a play selection standpoint, from a sustaining drive standpoint. But, there were a number of plays that I'll point to that I felt like I missed the throw, missed the read, missed an opportunity. We would have loved a couple of those throws into the end zone to be able to come away with a pass interference would have been a nice gift there, but we didn't get that. And so there were just things you point to that were so close. Obviously, the interception in the end zone also we felt was just so close to maybe going our way and being a touchdown, and now we're 1 score away, and instead it flips and they get the ball on a touchback. So play after play like that didn't go our way. And then you got to credit the Patriots. I felt when I watched the film that they did a great job in man coverage. They covered people well for the most part, and their scheme was a good scheme that I think gave us a lot to have to manage. So credit them and the way they had a plan and the way they executed it.
So this was my take on the scheme. You tell me if I'm correct. Did they basically play double on the outside, a soft shell on the top, mix up who was rushing from the linebacker, and force you guys to run and force those holds, force you guys basically to make your own mistakes? Is that fair?
I don't know that it's that simple. We felt going into the game that they may try to force us to run the ball a little bit, but at times there were very low safeties that were either doubling or simply just playing low and reading my eyes. Other times there were deep, split safeties that were playing a true cover 2, that they would even start a 1st and 10 of a drive. They would start in that coverage a couple of times. Many times, 1st and 2nd down, it was traditional 3 deep, 4 under. And then other times they brought all-out blitz and pressured. And then there were other times where pre-snap they literally just walked around and tried to create a little bit of confusion and chaos so that there wasn't an ability to identify who's doing what pre-snap, and then at the snap to then run to their spots and basically play a variety of defenses from that same amoeba type look. And I thought it was actually more multiple, but certainly they're going to double an Adam Thielen or a Stephon Diggs in certain situations, but it wasn't every 3rd down or every single time they thought the ball was going to them. It wasn't like they just doubled them. But I think the key is that, when you double people, you're asking the other people who are covering in single coverage to really hold up. And I thought what they did well was the players who weren't getting help, weren't getting a double team, they were covering those guys pretty well too. And I think that says a lot about their scheme and their players if they're able to really put those guys in an island and they can still hold up.
Yeah, absolutely. So another week, another unbelievable Kyle Rudolph catch.
Yeah.
I mean, did you get the chance to rewatch it? He has a defender's arm in between his 2 arms while he's holding on to it the whole time.
We talk about it a few times now on this podcast, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I can't say enough how good his hands are. And that seam ball in the 2-minute drill at the end of the half was a great catch, but the out route he caught on 3rd down near the sideline was an unbelievable catch. And then when you factor in some of the elements and the fact that the ball is a little wet, he makes some tough catches too in practice that people never see that are very impressive. So I continue to build a rapport with him and learn how to throw the ball to him and how to trust him because of his size, because of his hands, because of his experience. He's not just any old tight end. He has a unique skill set that when used properly can really be dangerous for our offense and in a good way. And I'm continuing to learn that and get better at how to throw him the football and give him opportunities because he continues to prove me right. When I throw the ball in his general direction, he comes down with it.
Really cool play design and good execution on the 1 touchdown to Adam. Can you take us through that play?
Yeah, again, it was what they had done all game defensively of basically showing they weren't really showing a defense. They were just all in the box, potentially blitzing everyone, but also potentially bailing everyone out into zone drops. And again, you don't know pre-snap what they're going to do. And obviously, if they drop everyone out or if they blitz everybody, there are plays that are good for either one of those, but not good for both. And so it's a bit of a guessing game trying to understand, what they're doing. But ultimately, we got to a play that got open and Adam came down with a nice catch. And that was certainly a great way to give us some momentum going into the half. And I love that drive not only scored, but it took time off the clock where we didn't give it back to them with the chance to get points at the end of the half. And, we certainly at halftime felt pretty good about where we were going as an offense and team. Really, I thought our defense played well all game long. And then we just weren't able to, build off of that in the second half.
That amoeba thing you call it, I've never heard it called amoeba, but it looked so strange on TV. They literally would all just walk around until like 1 second before the snap. So I found that really unique. Yep. Well, you know what? The season's not over. A lot actually happened yesterday to help you guys make the playoffs. The Bears lost to the Giants last night. The Panthers lost to the Bucks, and the Packers lost to the Cardinals. So it's, even though a loss hurts, 6-5-1, you guys would still make the playoffs if they started today. So there's still a lot to play for.
Yeah, a lot of games left, and we're right there. Obviously, there's even a game tonight on Monday Night Football that will have a factor in the whole wild card and divisional races. So with 4 games to play.
No one's running away with it.
No, and when we tied the Packers, I think we said, 10-5-1 at the end of the year will most likely get you in. 9-6-1 still will give you a chance. I know I was on a team that tied a game at 9-6-1, would have gotten us in, but we finished 8-7-1. So you can do the math as the year gets closer to the end here and see how many games you need to win to get to those numbers and then play accordingly. But it's going to bounce around here as teams play each other and beat up on one another, and it'll be an exciting finish, that's for sure.
Yeah, so there's a really big game this weekend, playing on Monday Night Football against the Seattle Seahawks. You played there last year in what I think is going to be very similar weather, 40 degrees, probably rainy, and you actually won there, one of your biggest wins ever. So what's it like playing in Seattle? Take us through that weather, that environment, that crowd.
Yeah, it's a difficult place to play. The weather's what it is. I mean, you're going to get a day much like we had in New England this past Sunday. The crowd is as good as any in the NFL. The stadium's built in such a way that it just traps the noise, and it'll be loud. And then obviously they're a great team. They have been for a long time. And Russell at the quarterback position is playing as well as really any quarterback right now, I'd say. And with his creative ability and his ability to improvise, they're never out of it. You never feel safe no matter what lead you have or how much time is left because of what he can do with the football in his hands. And then their defense, I have a lot of respect for Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright and just the players that have been there now for several years, and obviously Coach Carroll leading that whole organization. So tough place to play, but that's the NFL, and we'll be excited for that challenge and having a bounce back from what this past game was.
2 notes on the Seahawks. I'm sure a lot of people know this already, but you and Russell Wilson go way back, actually. There's a famous Hail Mary game when he was at Wisconsin and you were in Michigan State. Then the Big Ten championship game, which we were on the wrong side of. And then you've had some epic battles in the NFL. Tell us a little bit about Russell, basically, and your history with him.
Well, more than those games was the fact that we got to train together during the pre-draft process. So we both finished our bowl games on January 1st or 2nd of that year of our senior year. And 3 or 4 days later, we were both down in Florida again, training for the draft together, side by side, in the weight room, in the classroom, going out in the field and throwing. I mean, it was he and I working together, competing with one another and trying to get ready for the NFL. So it's been really cool now to look back now that 6-7 years have passed and to see where our careers have gone and that we're still playing against one another. And, it's amazing to see that journey and how it's unfolded.
Do you stay in touch with the quarterbacks from your draft class? I just thought of that when you said that.
Yes and no.
Nick Foles, Andrew Luck, Ryan Tannehill, any of those guys?
I do and I don't. I think, if I see like a guy like Nick in pregame or postgame when we play the Eagles, certainly catch up with him and just see how he's doing. And then there's some events in the offseason, whether it's PAO, a conference every year that they have called Professional Athletes Outreach, that a lot of those guys go to, Nick's been to, and Russell goes to, that I'll spend time with them and connect with them there, and also NFL PA meetings and Super Bowl week. You might run into people if you're not playing the game. You be at events and see them. So there's just events throughout the offseason that you might bump into them and catch up. But certainly you follow these guys all from a distance with their play.
That was an unbelievable draft class, that 2012 draft class. It's looking better and better every year. Every week, Kirk and I ask people to tweet us using the hashtag #AskKirk. Kirk is at Kirk Cousins 8 on Twitter, and I'm at Kyle Schonewil on Twitter. And last week we had a bunch of questions, Kirk, so I got a few narrowed down here, but also I have an update. Last week after we had Mike Remmers on, I put a poll up about deviled eggs. I basically gave people the option, are deviled eggs a great Thanksgiving item, or is it stuffing, or literally anything else? Those were the 3 choices, and deviled eggs won. 41% of people deviled eggs.
Mike Remmers made sure that I saw that result, and
Did he really?
Shocked. I was shocked. But there must be a contingency out there that loves it.
Well, so I asked people around here, I'm starting to wonder if it's a northern southern thing. A lot of my southern friends are like, oh yeah, deviled eggs, of course, but I've never heard of it. So anyways, a little update for you. Mike Remmers was correct. Okay, so here's our questions, okay? Retire84 asks us, which is a Randy Moss shout out, I'm assuming.
No doubt.
Tell us about the Donut Club. Are you not allowed to go there? And what are the rules with the Donut Club?
Outstanding question. I have to tread lightly here because much like the movie Fight Club, you're not supposed to talk about Donut Club. But
rule number 1 of Donut Club.
Yeah, so I'll preface it by saying that. And secondly, I don't participate usually just because I don't love the thought, and this might get me in some trouble as well, I don't love the thought of eating a donut the morning before the game or the day before the game. So I just kind of avoid the whole donut thing, although I love donuts as much as the next guy. But they have T-shirts, and they have a big sign up in the training room with the Donut Club rules, and it's a great thing. I just feel like it's hard to talk about, and I may get expelled from ever being able to go to Donut Club by the fact that I've even mentioned it now on this
is brought up
on this podcast. So I need to be careful. But if you ever find yourself in the performance facility on a Saturday morning before a game, 8 a.m., make your way to the training room, and you're always welcome to join Donut Club. But the rule is you can't, well, I'm not even going to talk about the rules because if I get them wrong, I get even more trouble. So it's something that happens in the facility. I just have to speak in vague generalities and leave it at that.
The Fight Club description was all we needed to hear. Just, you can't talk about it. You don't talk about Fight Club. Okay, the other question I got was from Jim Bicknell. And basically he asked, if Flip were to leave next year and get a head coaching job, how hard is it to adjust to a new offensive coordinator every year? And I'm going to add to that, you've had experience with that with Kyle, then Sean, then Jay, and now Flip. And I guess the average fan, me included, don't understand how much that affects it or not.
I've had 4 play callers in my 7 years, and I've had 3 in the last 3 years. And it is an element of the game, much like losing a receiver or changing out your O-line or running backs. Any change in personnel, coaching is much the same way. And you want continuity as much as you can get it, knowing that it's pretty unrealistic to have in the NFL. There are exceptions with players who have had the same coordinator for a decade or more, but that's not the norm. But I do look forward to building continuity, not only with a coaching staff here, but with teammates. I would love, to, like we talked about with Rudy, building a rapport where I start to get better and better at how to get him the football, such that in year 2, it's further along and a more developed attack than it was in year 1. And I'd love to be able to just snap my fingers and have that done already, but that just doesn't work that way. You have to play through things and learn through the mistakes or learn through the good plays to see how it needs to be done over and over. And so this whole sample size that I have behind me in terms of regular season, preseason, OTAs, training camp, all that has helped me develop a rapport with our system, with our staff, with our teammates, and I look forward to building that further. If a coach moves on to better things, I think that's, first of all, a compliment to our organization. I want people that I work with to be promoted, to move on to better things, and I think that's a great thing. So I want to see that happen, but I also love the continuity, and it's hard to have both. If you have a lot of success, you're usually going to lose some of your best people, and it's hard to keep the continuity, but it's part of the journey of playing in this league.
Makes sense. Well, going forward here, we have the last quarter of this season, and I'm going to choose to have the perspective of, I think 3-1 would get it done, and I think that we can start that this week against the Seahawks. And hey, you know what? The loss to the Patriots hurts. Nobody likes losing. You don't like losing. I don't like losing, but there's no shame there's no shame in losing to the Patriots at home. In fact, Bill Belichick is 122-28 at home. Think about that. That's insane. So there's no shame in that, and we have a chance this week to right the ship against the Seahawks. So Kirk, thanks for being here, and I hope that we can go out and get some victories.
Absolutely. This is a big final. It's the final quarter of the season, 4 games to go, 12 games in. I think our defense has played at a very high level here as of late. I think special teams has done a great job. I think we've shown flashes on offense of what we're capable of. And if we can put it all together, I really like our chances here down the stretch. But it starts with a big week here going to Seattle. And we got to regroup, learn from this past one, and put our best game out there this next Monday night.
Absolutely. This is the Officialize Experience. Thank you to everyone for listening. Kirk and I are very grateful. You can find this on Officialize.com, the video on Officialize.com, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.